So we got a reasonable amount, which is good.
Do you need your computer or are you good?
No, we'll just go off this. And so if we want to grab the first slide up there, might say survey results. Good cross-section. I have to say hats off to the non-tech savvy because you guys heavily, what's the word I'm looking for, over-indexed in terms of filling out the survey, which we'll see a little bit later. It was the youngins that we really struggled to get to use technology for this one. So we got a little bit less results from them. But how are we looking? Need another copy of it?
Speaking of young uns and technology.
Back in my day, when I was in the soundbox, no issues.
Do you want to, should we talk about why we did a survey?
Yeah, go
while
for it.
we're waiting for
Why
the
don't you
survey?
tell them, Matt?
Oh, okay. Well, Curtis had this great idea about having a survey. No, he didn't. It was my idea. What we were wondering was the general mood or tone or just thought process of the wider Woolcroft Assembly on all things Bible prophecy. So that was the starting point for the survey. We wanted some feedback on what you guys thought. And we broke the survey into age demographics because we sort of thought we had an idea on what certain generations thought towards certain things, but we were just curious to see if that was correct or not. I think Curtis a bit later is going to talk about confirmation bias, and I think we got some of that. We had a preconceived idea, and I think we were pretty right. But I guess we just wanted to explore the topic, and I think for me, I'll just explain my part on it. I feel like without asking each of you individually, and this was the point of the survey, is a lot easier than asking you each individually, is that I think a lot of people, and this might be very generalized, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people equate Bible prophecy. If I said the words Bible prophecy, I think a lot of people think return of the Lord. And a lot of people in the world are concerned about the end of the world, concerned about the state of events of the world, all that sort of stuff. But the return of the Lord is a part of Bible prophecy. It's an important part, but it's not all of it. So we just wanted to sort of explore if everyone else, if I was correct in that assumption or not. So have we got the slides? I think I saw it pop up for a second.
Yeah.
I'm running out of ad-lib.
There
But
it
that
is.
was just a bit of background as to why we did it. We wanted to, I guess, get some real-time feedback into what people thought about certain things, with the bonus of being anonymous, so you could write things without necessarily knowing who you were, although we can guess by age some responses, but that's just us judging.
We didn't sit down and
No.
figure that out. So I've left the clicker that you gave me rolling in my laptop bag, which is down there. So I'd like you to become my clicker, please, and hit the next one.
This is highly professional.
Otherwise,
I
someone
left
can,
my phone
someone
in
can
the car
bring
as
it
well.
to me if he's unable to click. One more time.
Get the clicker.
So my laptop bag's just by that fire red door. If someone wants to grab the clicker from it. Here we go. Wow, these are quite small on this screen. Would you be interested in learning more about Bible prophecy? So we wanted to
read that. You're doing well.
you got the glasses. So yes, you would be interested. Sorry. Is that better? All right. Apologies for my voice. I've just come off a pretty bad cold. But so the other kind of reason we were doing it was to build the sentiment for what you guys were after, and then we could scale our workshops to match. And so we saw here pretty resounding 80+% of you were pretty keen on having that result, having to know more about Bible prophecy, so that meant we should do this workshop. The remaining 8 of you that said no, you can leave the room, that's fine. Next one.
You've got the clicker.
I got the clicker now. Okay. Well, you do this one, Matt.
I can't read it.
Good. Please provide which age range you fall into. So what you might see here is that we had a much heavily... Oh, this thing's probably got a little... Whoop. No, it doesn't. Does that?
Yeah, did it.
Did it? Ooh, spotlight. There we go. Okay, 60%, 60 plus were by far the biggest responders with a 45-ish. The numbers are a bit small for me over here, so that's roughly. And then it scaled down. We did get a couple responses from 0 to 12, so that was encouraging. We'll see how they responded all the way through. So reasonable mix, but definitely more skewed to the older in age. How familiar are you with Bible prophecy? And so we went through, and people were mostly familiar. There was no one that had really no idea. Well, there's one person, but that's it. What are your primary sources of information about Bible prophecy? So when we look at this one here, we can see meetings. It kind of scaled down from the top there. Meetings, personal Bible prophecy, online study. But the third one was friends and family there. So it was a pretty connected one, either through meetings or just through your own Bible or in your own circle as well, which I think is probably a really good way to have Bible prophecy. Which aspects of Bible prophecy, now that door's open, I'm struggling with that word. What does that say up in that corner? Yeah, there. No, I can't read that word in your... Who's got that word? Interests. Okay, it's the angle. So yeah, what aspects are you interested in? And I might have to move over for this. Actually, Barnett, do you want to just shout out those ones there? Give us the top one. That's right. End times, Book of Revelations, then Old Testament, and then prophecies about Jesus Christ, and then the last one there was general. Okay, so general was the main call out here that we had. So there was this general consensus that there was just this interest, but the one following that was end times, which I think, as Matt pointed out, is pretty... I think it makes a bit of sense. People are pretty nervous about what's happening, but as a fellowship, we've always had a bit of a focus on end times prophecies as well, so it's maybe on people's minds. And then just the last one here. My eyes have gone now. What is your main reason for wanting to learn about Bible prophecy? Did I get that right? Excellent. Got nods.
Why don't you just look at this? You don't have it here.
My laptop is up there. Yeah, so not in my laptop bag. So yeah, and spiritual growth and understanding current events were the two top ones there. So we took all of this information, and then I've tried to kind of feed some of it into our presentation. Well, interesting. Constructive quotes. So we don't like to use the word negative. I think that was all for the small, just in case. Thanks.
I wouldn't mind a coffee.
I was literally about to say that. I would love a coffee. That would be great. So we, in the facilitation world, we don't use the word negative. We use the word constructive, usually on one line. So there was a couple quotes in there which were constructive quotes, but I think that they're worth calling out, and we want to talk a little bit about them as well. So my clicker's stopped working now that I've got my laptop. Did you click off something maybe? There we go. I think many of the connections are weak or easily disproven, and it actually is quite stressful for me hearing unsubstantiated messages from the platform. I was like, well, okay, this is an interesting one. But we don't like to shy away from heavy words. And there could be some truth to this. I will talk a little bit about maybe what the truth behind this is, particularly from someone who has to give talks. And we have time constraints, obviously, when we're giving talks. But I think when we see stuff like this happening, then we can kind of go two ways, and the owners can... We could sit there and just get grumpy about what we're hearing, and then tell other people that we're grumpy about what we're hearing and it's probably wrong. Or we could go research it for ourselves and have conversations with the person and get a better understanding. And unfortunately, most people don't do that second part. They kind of do the first part. So we'll talk a little bit about this when we're doing our own research. Prophecies that have been... I was like, how did you do that? Prophecies that have been don't impact my life. Prophecies of what's to come can sometimes scare me, but I wouldn't say it impacts my daily life. I love all the meeting presentations on Bible prophecy, but have no idea where to start on my own, which is definitely something we want to help you with today. And now reinforcing quotes. If I get stressed about current events, knowing prophecies have come true reminds me God is in control. Bible prophecy is just another way God proves himself to be true. And I found myself going down rabbit holes based on what I've heard from the stage, and I've enjoyed it. Who here's done that? Gone down rabbit holes, you've heard something in a talk? Who here's done that during the talk? Yeah. It happens, but it's if the Spirit leads, then so be it. Just watch it back on YouTube afterwards. Any thoughts or anything so far?
No, you're doing really well.
Thanks, man. All right, this is a word cloud. Are we all familiar with word clouds? Excellent. So the larger the word, the greater the sentiment we received back in the survey. So we wanted to know how you generally felt about Bible surveys. Curious, inspired, reassured were the big ones, and so they're the ones that came back as the most people ticked those boxes. And you could tick multiple boxes, but so it was comforting to know that these ones in green here were the ones that were had the highest sentiment.
Can I ask why Bible is on there?
So there was an other box, and someone put a whole sentence worth of a phrase, and I tried to, there's a couple on here that leached in, I tried to remove them, but Bible and prophecy and I think we're...
Empowered.
Yeah, there was a couple in there that snuck in as singulars, but yeah, that's why that one's there. So someone feels Bible about it. But confused, probably the person who feels Bible. Hopeful and overwhelmed were the next one. So we start to see that there is maybe this underlying, there's an underlying section where people can be confused by it, which I think is pretty understandable. It's a pretty hard topic, and unless you're really passionate about the thing that they're talking about, sometimes it can be really hard to understand and unpack. Overwhelmed, that goes in with that, but hopeful as well. And then we go down to the least, which was skeptical, anxious, and indifferent. So we've got a pretty receptive audience today.
Good.
There will be no fruit thrown at us, hopefully. Okay, so just 3 to finish, again, at a size that you can't read, so I can make up the stats. Sentiment towards Bible prophecy, impact on faith and daily life. So there's a couple of different colours here. The blue is a positive sentiment. The blue is a neutral sentiment, so it's neither positive or negative. The yellow is a positive sentiment towards how it impacts our daily life, and then the red is mixed. The green is negative. So the only one that has a bit of green in it is the middle one there, the middle one there, which is age bracket 26 to 39. So a couple of people in there maybe thought that there was a negative impact on their daily life, and we had a bit of a discussion about that. What do you think?
I'm trying to remember the discussion.
Okay, you were saying that it was
Thanks.
about it was about the fact that they might have kids and end of days
yes.
could be a bit nervous.
Yeah, all right. Just trying to think how to word it. So I think going back to the word cloud, some of those words about anxious and overwhelmed and things like that, I think as a parent and of young children, there is, I guess it's not black and white in terms of where their future is. There is scriptures and there's encouragement and things like that, but going back to that, where if you don't have a really clear picture in your mind, your natural first instinct is, as a parent, is to be concerned for your children. And I think that age bracket is young family central. And I think we sort of, just from our own personal conversations as well, sort of concluded that's probably where that's coming from. And I think that's fair enough. If you're not worried about your kids in the state of the world that it is, you probably shouldn't have kids. Because it's a scary place out there and it's getting scarier and worse. But that is what is to come. We know the future for this world is finite. But yeah, hopefully we can reassure you that that is not our story.
That's it. And for those closer to the finite that he just mentioned, pretty positive sentiment. So that's lovely. All right. Go to this next one here. Average frequency of Bible prophecy study. I was really happy to see that the 0 to 12s here were getting in to their Bible prophecy as much as the 19 to 40-year-olds. So go you, that's great, but not bad. Obviously, in the older age bracket, we have maybe a bit more time.
Are those numbers, is the 5 equivalent to the 10?
As this is.
Or the 5 is 5?
Sorry, yes, the 5 is equivalent to the 10. Sorry, It's just some back-end math. Yeah, but this is an average across that whole spectrum. Yeah.
So what, it's like 90% at the end, just about?
Yeah. Okay, and then the last one. Average importance of Bible prophecy by age range. We all felt it was pretty important, except for the 0 to 12s that really looked into it and didn't feel it was important. No, but we're all generally pretty much on the same. So that was the survey results, and we've used that to build out our presentations, maybe myself more than yourself. My presentation after the morning tea is going to be on research.
Sorry, keep going.
Okay, is going to be on Bible research, Bible prophecy research, a couple ways to look at it and things to be aware of as we go through it. And then I'll show you a little bit of a journey of how I do mine. And then yours is going to be about. You want to talk about it?
So we broke it up into Curtis's topic is researching Bible prophecy, and mine will be interpreting Bible prophecy, because the two things are different, and there is a lot of interpretation out there. And I'll say both within and without of the church, there's a lot of interpretation. So my presentation is called Up to Interpretation. And I'm going to look at some of those sort of things. I was just thinking, we're pretty early on morning tea.
Okay.
What can we do now? Do you want to ask if anyone wants to ask a question?
They've got guitars. Do you want to sing a song? Matt?
Or do you want to do yours and then we'll do morning tea after? Or how do you want to do it?
Well, how long? When's morning tea?
In 25 minutes.
Okay. I did say we only needed 10 minutes for this. Well, do I want to ask a question of the crowd? Do it now? Do mine now? Yep. Okay, you asked for it. All right. Let's go. Let me just get set up. Talk amongst yourselves. Thanks. Just going to get something going on my laptop. So I had briefly mentioned that, let me just adjust this, that whilst I'll be talking about Bible prophecy, what I'm going to talk about is not just about Bible prophecy. It applies to Bible research in general. It applies to anyone, if you're looking into any of the things that are being said from the platform, or you're yourself going through something you've heard, wherever you've heard it, YouTube, social media, you're doing your own bit of research, and you're finding some really cool things. How do you go about tracking it, or how do you find the inspiration, and then what do you do once you feel like you've got something that's interesting? So we're gonna have a look through that. All right, let's start off with a quote. These were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind and searched the scriptures daily whether those things were so. From Luke in Acts chapter 17. So it's about what we're going to be doing today. Three sections to the presentation I'm going to be running. First one is finding the spark. So, okay, how do we come across something to start researching? Not all of us are into researching this stuff. Some of us just like sitting down and just listening and getting fed, and that's completely fine. Who are the researchers in the room? Who likes to search out and find? A couple down here. Were you always that way? Did it come across you sometime in life? I don't know, you might know, you might not. I don't know if I was always a researcher, but I know that once I started going down rabbit holes and like finding out stuff for myself, it became something I really enjoyed and then I wanted to do more of. So if you aren't that way inclined, maybe give it a try. Just start trying to search things down. There's the spoon bending sessions that I don't know who's running them now. The Raimundo's in Africa, but there's different places you can go to start finding the spark. But we'll talk through a little bit about some of those. Spend a bit of time on bias and assumptions. This is the part that I think trips us up and. Like as a human race. I don't mean us as in the Revival Fellowship, but bias and assumptions can really play with our minds on everything, particularly when we're doing research on subjects. We can have preconceived concepts and we can have things that we are sure are true, but actually they're not true. We're going to talk through all of those things and how to overcome them. And then we're going to finish with a little thing called journey mapping and reviewing. Using a model called PEEP. And we're going to look at, okay, what do we do once we have found some stuff and how do we ensure that we are kind of taking it down the right track? So first of all, we're going to start with the spark. And there's a couple of different ways we can do this. Often, and for me, it's probably mostly this one here, but it starts with people. So listen to a lot of, we're very lucky, we've got podcasts from all around Australia from our fellowship. So listening to a lot of the pastors or the brethren speak from there, and then I'll get all sorts of information. I'm hearing stuff, and then I'll go, oh, you know what, I haven't heard of that before. And then I'll look into it. I want to find out a little bit more, or I don't understand that, or I didn't think that was the way that it was. And so then I'll stop the podcast, and then I'll go have a look at it, or I'll make a note in my notes on my iPhone, and I'll have a look at it. So the first thing with Bible prophecy or Bible research is just having that mindset to be open to go, okay, let's think about it. What am I hearing? And actually think about what you're hearing and think, does that make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, well, you could do something about it or you could do nothing, but doing something about it is a lot more fun. So do something about it. But yeah, so you've got the platform, conversations with people that you're having. And then the part that generally requires the most research is if you're on YouTube or social media of some type and you hear something. These are the most insidious places for information, where you're constantly being fed information that seems genuine, or seems correct, or seems like it could be true, but is often incorrect. I even saw something this morning, and they were talking about this preacher from early 1900s, and everything they were saying sounded great. And then these two boys that came in, but there was no room, and but they don't know who to this day, someone found them a seat. And he made a big point of that. And then it turned out that one of those boys was Billy Graham, and he gave his heart to God, and it all went downhill pretty fast from there, as you can imagine. And but it kind of sounded correct, and they were making out like that there was this angel that had appeared, and you know, there's these things that could trick us if we're not open to thinking about it. But these things can also spark in us some really interesting research into what is right and what is wrong. And then obviously there's the personal side that could spark it as well. If we're reading our own Bible and if we're having prayer, the amount of times just during a prayer session I've had a thought, and then I'm like, oh, do I stop praying and look at that? Or do I, but during prayer is a really great time to spark inspiration or ask God for some inspiration about the Bible. And then just obviously reading the Bible. So for me, the story I'm going to be talking about throughout this, it actually starts with Judah. And it starts with something I had heard Pastor Jock say a couple times, and I'd heard in other talks as well, which was that Judah's line was going to be, reunited in Ireland. And I was like, well, how does that happen? Because that means he needs to have two lines, and one of them needs to be in Ireland, whilst the other one is going to head to Ireland. So how does the line reunite in Ireland. That didn't make sense to me. But I'd heard this multiple times, and so I was like, well, I need to have a look at it. And so when I looked at it, when you look in the Bible, Judah had two sons. One was called Pharez, and there's a really great story about the birth of Pharez and the other son, which ties into the whole thing. But the line of David, King David, is through the line of Pharez. And then he had a son, Ezram, and it continued all the way to King David. And then 27 generations later to the last princess of that line, who was taken by Jeremiah out of Egypt. So that's, from a biblical perspective, that's you can read all of that. But he also had another son whose name was Zara. And Zara had a son called Cachel. And that's where the Bible ends. The Bible mentions Cachel a couple times. That's where it ends. And I was like, okay, so how does Cachel and his generations, how do they end up in Ireland? How does that happen? And this was, for me, this was the fire. Because somehow, 27 generations later, Cachel's son needs to marry Tamar from the line of Pharez up the top there. They need to get married in Ireland. And we know that there's this kind of one piece of the puzzle of Jeremiah, but I didn't know enough. So I was like, I wonder if I can find something. And that was, for me, that was the fire that started. All right, next I want to touch on bias and assumptions. There's a lot of different types of bias, but there's three kind of main types of bias. So there's information bias. So information bias is when data is correlated in a way that makes it seem correct but isn't correct. So as an example, there was a survey done on Christian youths and at school, and well, actually it was done at these Christian youths at uni, and it was how many of them had lost their faith after high school. So they'd gone from school into university life, and then they'd lost their faith, and it was 80% was the return, and they were like, wow, 80% of youths that are students are losing their faith straight after school, and that's a big statistic. But then when you look at the real numbers, you realize that they only sampled the uni leavers. They didn't sample any of the ones that went directly into work. They didn't sample anyone who went to TAFE. And so they'd actually they'd probably missed maybe 50 to 70% of that research data of the people had been missed. So they'd only done it on a small percentage, 30%, 40% of that group had actually been surveyed, and they were 80%. But if you extended the survey, then it was nowhere near that. They didn't extend the survey, but you could see straight away that there was this information bias where they've taken data and numbers that look sincere, but they haven't actually extrapolated the information correctly. And this is very common on everywhere. On the media, I work for the media, so I can throw stuff at them. But the media and on social platforms, just this information bias where you're given figures and numbers which look like they represent correct things, but they're actually incorrect. Social desirability, the want to be loved, generally means that people will lie to you because they want to tell you what you want to hear, or they don't want to be mean to you. There's a lot of different things there, which means that when we're doing research like this, if we're a kid and we go to our mum or dad and we tell them about it, maybe they won't be the best person to go to because they'll just kind of go along with us or whatever, or they don't want to let us down or hurt our feelings potentially, or our friends, things like that. So social desirability really is all about the way that people respond to you, and we need to take that into consideration as well when we are considering bias. And then the last one here is confirmation bias, which Matt spoke about, where we favour evidence that supports our own belief. And this is social media 101. And I think we probably all know it by now. But the more you scroll, maybe we don't know, and again, because I work in media and there's a division of my company that works specifically with advertising, the way that they gather data on how you interact with a web page is quite astounding. And the way that we freely give information is also quite astounding. Like if you go and buy dog food every Thursday at Woolworths and you swipe your Everyday Rewards card, media companies know that. So they can serve you advertising on Wednesday to buy a new type of dog food because we get data on that stuff, because you're happily giving that data away with your Everyday Rewards card. This isn't conspiracy theory, that's happening. But that's just one example. The longer you spend looking at an image, the more that social platform thinks that you want to see more of that image. So it'll serve more of that image to you. So if you're a flat earther, any flat earthers in the room? Okay, that could have been awkward. Okay, Cam. All right, Cam, if you're Cam. Then you're going to be scrolling through social media, looking at surfboards and electronics. I don't know what you're into, but and then you'll see someone talking about the flat Earth, and you stop and you give it a read. The next time you open up, well, actually, as you scroll only 1 or 2 images down, you'll notice something else flat earthery again, and you read it again. And what it starts to do is build out this confirmation bias that actually other people believe what I believe. And then it gets so strong that you believe that the whole world actually thinks what you believe, and the people that don't think what you believe, they're actually the idiots. They're the people that are stupid. And it's happened in. They use it to radicalize people into Islam, like the bad sides, and all sorts. There's so much use for this, and that's all confirmation bias. Well, as you can probably tell, it's pretty important that we don't let that cloud our research and how we go about our research. All right, let's keep trekking through here. Oh, the depth of the riches, both of the wisdom and the knowledge of God, how unsearchable are his judgments and his ways past finding out. It continues, for who hath known the mind of the Lord, or who hath been his counselor, or who hath first given to him, and it shall be recompensed unto him again? For of him and through him and to him are all things, to whom be glory forever. Amen. I don't think we'll ever get to the bottom of everything, and I think that that's for a reason. I don't think God wants us to know everything. He still wants us to have to come to him and to ask him and to search through him. If everything was clear, then things would actually be boring. For those maybe my age and younger who, were pretty heavy into video games or are still playing video games, if you've ever used cheat codes in video games, you become unbeatable, unlimited, unlimited power. But then what happens moments later, after you've destroyed everything in your path, the game is boring. You actually can do anything now, and now there's no challenge. And that lack of challenge means that there's actually just no desirability to play anymore, and then you stop playing the game. And there's a known effect that happens. I use gaming as one example, but without the challenge in gaming isn't as desirable. You don't get that dopamine hit. What we're talking about here is God giving us a good dopamine hit, research, and like looking into his word. And yeah, it can be frustrating sometimes not being able to find all of the pieces, but it keeps you actually wanting more and to research more. And you'll find enough to be able to make out the puzzle, but it does make it exciting. So very quickly, I've got a couple of topics up here, and for time, we don't have much of it left, but for time, although we are ahead of time, so I'm just going to take my time. What I would like you to do, have a look up here, and I've put up a couple different things. So there's a couple of different thought starters for you if you haven't got any that are wrangling in your head at the moment. First, biblical. So these are just Bible-based ones. And are there only 9 spiritual gifts? Let's have a little bit of a discussion about that quickly. Are there only 9 spiritual gifts? I don't want to say yes. I don't want to say no. Would it be controversial if I said no? Yes, it would. Oh, who thinks it wouldn't be controversial if I said no? Interesting. So maybe I should put this in the controversial column. This is a really good thing to look into. There are 9 that are clarified in the Bible, but is that the limit of the Holy Spirit? Is that all that the Holy Spirit can do, is those 9 things? I dare say not, because we see throughout the Bible a whole host, particularly in the New Testament, of other things which have come directly from the Spirit. They're gifts of the Spirit. So we're talking terminology now, aren't we? But an interesting thing to research, a thought starter, potentially. I'm not getting pulled off the platform, great. Pick a parable, have a bit of a research into it. Why did Jesus do that thing? Why did he say that thing? Why did he go and kill that fig tree that wasn't bearing fruit out of season? That doesn't seem like a nice thing to do. Have a look into it. Jesus had a reason. There's some really great stuff. Or you could pick some more historical-based stuff. Now, the historical stuff is a bit harder because it's not necessarily in the Bible, and we trust the Bible, but we definitely don't trust history, and you shouldn't trust history. That's the 101. You need lots of reasons to trust any article you're reading from history, mostly because it was passed down. Parts of history were heavily passed down from bard to bard, from king to king, which meant that the king wanted history written their way and the bard had to sing it their way, and then there was a whole host of history which was oral, not written. And so we probably got a little bit of information or confirmation or social bias in with history. But we trust God. So historical evidence, though, there's some really good ones you can have a look in here where we can see some maybe diggings and sites and stuff and find stuff there. But again, take it with a grain of salt. Noah's Ark has been found I don't know how many times. So, make sure that you've got some good references there. And then we've got some good potentially controversial, maybe less so for us and more so for other churches as well. So some of these could be some good thought starters if you haven't had a look into it. Write one down. All right, and now evaluating. So there's a couple methods used in evaluating. This one is called TRAP, and it is formed up of these 5 things. I'll start with just one at a time. So first you want to have a look at whatever you're looking at, whatever evidence you found that backs up what you're trying to research into is timeless. The time period, so everything around time to do with that period. Like when did that person write that information? Why did they write that information? We'll come to that. But in terms of time, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. In terms of time, when did they write it? How far from the event was it? Everything around time, and does it make sense for them to have written it at that time? Relevance, how relevant is the content that you're looking at in terms of the context of what you're trying to uncover? These will make sense as well when I go to journey mapping. Authority, whoever was writing it, what authority do they have to be writing this? It's pretty straightforward. How accurate is it? What evidence did they present that backs this up? And in what manner are they writing it? Which goes on to this last one. What was the purpose of what they were writing about? Could they have a bias for what they're writing for another purpose? Are they trying to present some type of solution here, and they've already got a preconceived bias, and therefore what they're saying here about what you're interested in could be a little bit skewed because it helps build their case. So this is the TRAP method: timelessness, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. If we apply, not necessarily all of these, but at least several of these to the things that we're looking into, you'll be able to throw out a lot of content that's not relevant. All right, who here has heard of the Mandela effect? I'm going to give you an example. Actually, yeah, I'll give you an example. We've all heard of the scripture that talks about the lion will lay down with the lamb. Yep, all heard that. The lion shall lay down with the lamb. Can anyone tell me where that is in the Bible? It isn't? Are you kidding? We sing songs about it. Ray. Well, you're right. It's not in the Bible. What will the lion lay down with, Ray? Do you know? The ox, I think it was. The wolf will lay down with the lamb. Yep. So it's in Isaiah 11. If we go there. Here, so the phrase does not appear. It's Isaiah 11:6 describes a wolf dwelling with the lamb, a leopard lying down with a young goat, and in Isaiah 65, it pairs the lion with the ox. That is the Mandela effect. So for those of you who thought that it was the lion and the lamb, that's because we sing songs about it. It's probably even been said from the platform as an example of the peace that is to come. And it's a great imagery of the lion and the lamb. The lion and the ox, it's maybe not so much of a peaceful imagery, but it's still nice. And the wolf with the lions, it's still lovely. But I mean, that's just cute. I think we're used to that imagery, and now we have that in our head, and so this is the Mandela effect. This is groupthink, and there's heaps more. You would be surprised how full of your brain the Mandela effect, different aspects of it are. For those who are Star Wars fans, Darth Vader never said, "Luke, I'm your father." He didn't say it. He said, "No, I am your father." But history is recorded now that he said, "Luke." So go watch the movie. So this is an example of assumptions based off our own memory, based off our own collection, and something we really need to be thoughtful of, particularly if brothers, if you're giving a talk up here, making statements that you've heard from the platform a million times, but if you're not 100% sure that that is a true statement, you shouldn't be saying it. I've given many talks where, as I'm writing the talk, I write something down, I'm like, is that actually a thing? And then I go and write that down, I'm like, oh, that is not a thing. So I don't say it. So make sure you, and that is particularly for the brothers, make sure you know what you're saying rather than just saying what you think you know. All right, and then the last one, mapping out the journey. There's a lot of different ways you could do it. I like to do this spatially. So there's some really good apps that you could use to do this, or there is a pen and paper, and you can just get that, and then you can start mapping it out. So, you know, the old school still works pretty well. But breaking it down into these 4 sections. So when you're actually going through your journey, we start with the inspiration, which is, for me, was about, okay, well, how did Judah reunite to Ireland? And then we go, first thing I then do is go, okay, deep into the Bible. What can I find out about every character linked to this event happening? And I look at all the genealogies, and I look at all the different link backs, and I go as hard as I can. Now, this was well before ChatGPT and AI, so I'm looking over at you guys. This took me probably 3 years worth of research. It's a new word, deal with it. To come up with. Yeah. So go deep in biblical, and then once you've seemingly exhausted, because I guarantee you'll then, once you start doing this next part, you'll come back to the Bible. You'll keep referencing the Bible. You go to the secular history. Okay, what does history know about the characters, where the endings are? So for me, it started with Cacol. Does history talk about Cacol? And I'd found out a bit more from the Bible than I thought I would about this character. And you know, he was only mentioned twice. Once when he was born, and the second time he was mentioned as compared, him and his brothers, as compared to Solomon. Remember when Solomon says he was wiser than, and it mentions these men? Well, they were all the sons of Judah, and Cacol was one of those men. So it was Dara or Dada, a couple names. Each of these have a couple different names. So I had a look for them in history, and then kept referring back to biblical sources. And then before I just published this and out, I then did a bit of a review process, which I'll show you at the end, which involved Pastor Paul and Pastor over in London, and Pastor Jock and Auntie Helen. So went in on all of those. Now, this is a very quick dive into the presentation. I'm not going to give it to you now, it's just a recorded video. So I think I don't know if I'm going to actually be able to stop, or if it's just going to play. I feel like it's probably just going to play, which is fine. So I'm just going to let you watch it. Don't freak out. I'll explain what's about to happen, because it's going to go very fast, okay? Get that? So I might need you guys to click on the screen. Just click on the, yeah, that's it. So this was me journey mapping. So I took all of the information that I'd found, and I just put it into this map of different sections, and then kind of made this route around. And I was like, okay, you know, this is where these people were. This was where they existed. Where's Cacol in history? He was in Athens. What information did we have on him? Oh, he had a son called Gathalus. Gathalus was found in the Chronicles of the Scots. Chronicles of the Scots, oh yeah, that guy. He married Scotta, who was a princess of Egypt. She became the namesake for Scots of England, of Scotland, not England. And then went through all of these different texts. Did you pause that? Okay, don't worry about it. All right, go again. So you can keep watching that. But just this journey of all of these articles. And what I found most amazing was, while I was doing this research, some of the things that helped me there was a couple points I got stuck. And it was only really God that I can say helped me through, because I'm sitting in a meeting, and a pastor is giving a talk on the prophecy of the light horse. And in it, he mentions the declaration of Arbroath. And I was like, I didn't understand why he even mentioned it. And then afterwards I looked and tried to find any research between the declaration of Arbroath. Does anyone know the correlation between them and the light horse? I couldn't find any correlation. So let me know why he might have been speaking about it. But he mentioned this text. And I was stuck trying to find out how Kakol featured in history. And then this Declaration of Arbroath just opened it all up, and it spoke about the Israelites exiting Egypt, and it mentioned an older text, the Chronicles of the Scots. And so I had a look at that, and that was in Gaelic, and so then I translated that into English, and then that just spoke about Gathalas and his wife, and the journey of the Israelites and his whole life, and then that referenced another text. And so just looking into these texts and their sources and who wrote them and why they wrote them, I just uncovered this really crazy journey about Gathalas and his sons and Kakol and all the way through, and which ties into some other history we know about maybe the Red Hand of Ulster, which I feel like maybe Pastor Chris, you've given a talk on before, and the sons and who went up and took over Ireland, who were of the line of Zara. And then I found through that talk, and then a couple other talks and instances and chats with Pastor Jock, I found all the connections in secular and then in biblical history, and was able to tie them back. And it was pretty exciting. It was pretty good. And so before I took it any further, do you want to, yep, that one. That's great. I'm back in control. Over here. It's worth going through this here. Now, I couldn't find, the original one of this is an O, but I didn't like the word poep because it sounded too much like pope. So I made it peep, and I used the word episkopos, which just means like an officer. So that's the O. So the first thing you should do when you come across something that is kind of interesting, a little bit different, and maybe not necessarily something that you've heard from the platform before, is probably speak to a pastor about it and go, hey, has anyone spoken to you about this before? And they might go, yeah. XL, they might go, no, never heard anything. You've just let them know about it. You're like, yeah, I'm looking into it. Ask for their opinions, get their thought. The next is if you've got an episkopos, so an officer, young is leader, elder, whatever, that you can speak to, and kind of, you want to try to take someone on the journey with you that can maybe help you. So that could either be the episkopos or it could be the peer at the end. And then an expert in the middle. So for me, Pastor Warren Sharrock was a pretty big resource in the work that I was doing for this, which was referred to me by Pastor Paul. And we had a lot of conversations backwards and forwards, and he clarified a couple pieces of texts for me. But I wouldn't have known that unless I'd gone to the pastor at the start. So utilize people around you. Don't do it in isolation. Because the problem with isolation is the confirmation bias. We can't generally find our way out of that. We don't know what we don't know, and we can often think things are one way. What that also means is when we go and speak to somebody and they tell us something that is against what we thought, or they give us a different idea, we can actually take a bit of offense. And this is probably one of the biggest parts, is whilst we're going through this journey, we've got to try not take any offense. People are going to come and go, oh, but what about this? And you may not have thought of it. Doesn't mean you're dumb. You've got to be able to take feedback. If you can take feedback and you can go and speak to people, then you're going to end up having a lot of fun and enjoying the research, and then hopefully having something that can really profit the fellowship. This isn't just for males, by the way. Take Arnie Helen, for instance, one of the greatest inspirations of prophecy and research I think we have in our fellowship. So this is for everybody. This is an opportunity that we can all enjoy, and hopefully then come back and share with each other. Just some closing thoughts here. So we spoke about finding a puzzle where there's a piece missing, and you're trying to plug that piece in. That's what we're trying to do. And then don't get swayed by others, other conversations. Do your own research. So if you hear something from the platform, do your own research on it. We spoke about that quote earlier where they said that sometimes some of the information feels a bit weak and unsubstantiated or unsupported. As somebody who gives talks up here, I want to spin that both ways. It could be the case. The person up here may have just been saying something that they heard and they didn't have evidence, or they have a limited time, so therefore they weren't able to explain to you. Like, if I was to go through that whole presentation on the Scarlet Thread with you, I would need half a day to go through the details for all of that. But if I was giving that in a talk, which I have, I've only got half an hour, maybe an hour, and I can't give you all of the insights to how I found the information. So if you're there and you're feeling that way, it is on you to speak to that person afterwards, rather than sit in that position of maybe mistrust. Because all that does is just breed more mistrust the next time you hear them speak. You need to get clarity from them. Speak to them and then work it out together and be willing to help them rather than just judgmental. Just be like, oh, okay, so all right, well, let's find out where that sits. If they don't know, if they've made a mistake or whatever, because we're all human. Doesn't matter who is up on stage. We're all human. Let people know what you're working on, which was spoken about. And then the last part here, get sign off before kind of going public with it, per se. Just because we don't want to rattle the nest a little bit too much. Even if you are convinced that this is a game changer and that, every time we speak in tongues, we actually should have fire bursting out of our heads based on what you've researched. Whatever it is, go get approval first that you can kind of further push that information out. All right, and all people said? Amen. I'll leave it there. Now,